Greetings. My name is Kate Rademacher, and I'm here with Writing for Your Life and Compassionate Christianity. I'm delighted to be here with Kate Kennedy, an emerging author who has just written a new book, which is coming out soon, the title of which is Once Upon a School, a story of dreaming big, falling hard, and bouncing back. Really, really great book. I got a copy of it, an advanced copy of it. So I'm excited to hear more about the process of writing it and your story. So Kate, welcome to the conversation. And if you can just
You.
start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're calling in from, and sort of how you got to this point in your journey.
Yes, thank you. I am uh, from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am a lay minister at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Atlanta. And I have been writing for my entire life, and going to school. And I love all things theology and school and studying, which is kind of dorky, my kids say, but I just think it's fun. And I have four kids. They are all, well, my youngest will be going to college soon, so they're all kind of old and adult now. But I spent 20 years staying home with them. And so I'm just kind of getting back into the workforce and kind of figuring out what my next steps are. And in the process, I wrote a book. So it's really exciting.
Well, that's great. Congratulations. So tell us about the book. Well, and I think you have a copy there, so if you can hold it up, we'd love
Oh
to see it.
yes, I'm very, very proud of my new book that I have a hard copy of
Yay.
now.
Great. So tell us
Uh,
about it.
so in 2015, I started a journey to open a school for children who are without housing in Atlanta. And it was not anything that I was credentialed to do, qualified to do. I wasn't an expert in education. I just saw this need, and it just kept kept nudging me and picking at me, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And so I really just started taking steps, one step after another step after another step. We have a significant issue with homelessness in Atlanta, and I have a son who has some really significant special needs and learning disabilities. And I knew that with all of my privilege and resources and ability, I could hardly keep him from falling through the cracks. And it just made me think, what are all these people doing who are here, who have children who don't have any resources? I mean, even if they have children that don't have learning disabilities, like what if you can't read by the time you're in the third grade? They literally plan prison expansions over that number of children who can't read by the third grade, and it's significant. Um, so I couldn't let it go, and people thought that I was way in over my head and being ridiculous, but I just took one step after another, and before you know it, I opened a school. And so it was a thrilling process, but it was complicated, and um, I I just felt like I needed to chronicle the story of opening the school to kind of inspire people that you can do hard things if you just listen to those little nudges.
Well, thank you for that. And um, as we were discussing before we started recording, you kind of weave in some personal parts of your own story, your son's story, with the story of the community and the population that you're trying to serve. Can you just talk a little bit about sort of the structure of the book and how you do that?
Sure. So, it's really interesting. I had been kind of enjoyed writing, playing with writing for a long time, and I was actually in school at Emory, and the Writing for Your Life convention was there, conference, and I came and I was just browsing the different booths, and I picked up a book by Kathy Izzard. She had a table there that was a 100-story home. And I looked in it, and it was about her journey to open a homeless shelter in Charlotte. And I said to her, "Wow, I've opened this school for kids who are experiencing homelessness, and I think it would be so fun to write a book." And she was like, "Well, you should." And so I was like, "Wow, well, maybe I will." So I went down home, and I kind of just started like jotting down my thoughts and my memories, and I reached back out to Kathy and I sent it to her, and she was like, well, this is great and it's a great story, but what's your why? People want to know why you did this. People want to know the story of what was inside of you, what else was going on in your life, what was compelling you, not just what happened, but why it happened. And she really pushed me. And over the next few months, I went back and kind of thought about, why did I start the school? And in the end, I left the school. Why did I leave the school? And it had a lot to do with my son's learning disabilities, the reason I started it. Um, and I learned so much about myself as a middle-aged, privileged white woman working with a population who was completely, completely different than me. Our school was 100% Black, 100% homeless, and our staff was almost 100% Black. So it was it was a very interesting dynamic that took a lot of work and a lot of love and a lot of conversation. And so I thought that was an important story to share of how just compassion and relationship and connection and respecting the dignity in other people's stories really is an important part of being community together.
Thanks for that. And I'm glad you mentioned Kathy Izzard, who's a longtime friend of Writing for Your Life. I learned a lot from her book about um, the homeless population in Charlotte, where she was working. And can you just say, is there something you can share about sort of what you learned about how to effectively serve kids who are impacted by homelessness? Because one thing that I took from your book is that it wasn't just about the school; it was also about um, sort of a broader movement in other cities as well. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, yes, it definitely is. And the homelessness in urban Atlanta is significant, and the city's doing a lot to work on it. But I just can't bear to see children fall through the cracks. And I truly believe that an education is the very best way to give these children who are falling through the cracks the opportunity to write a story of their own success. And so through the school, what I really learned was that, well, I'll share a story really quickly. And this is in the book. When we first started the school, we have uniforms, and we had white shirts because we thought, well, we can give them these white shirts with the little logo on them, and then they can, they can bleach them and keep them clean and all that. And we had a parent meeting kind of a couple of months into the start of school the first time, and we asked the parents, what's going good, what was it. And it took a long time, but one mom timidly raised her hand and she said, the white uniform shirts are hard. Well, I had never thought about the fact that you can't just bleach them and put spot remover on them. They don't have access to laundry. And so the kids would sometimes have to wear their uniforms to school for a whole week before they could be laundered. And they were getting significantly dirty. And I said, well, what would be better? And she said, maybe something darker. So we ordered navy blue uniform tops. And when we handed it out to the parents, they were like, you listen to us. Nobody ever listens to us. Nobody ever listens to us. And that was just so life-changing for me to really see an example of people just not respecting the dignity of people just because of their circumstance. I mean, these women were smart and they loved their kids and they didn't want anything more than to see their kids succeed. And just the fact that we listened to them. And so that's become kind of something that I am really interested in, is really listening to people and really trying to honor the dignity and use my privilege to give voice to people who feel like they don't have voice. And so in the process, we have reached out to some other cities and some other communities. I'm working with a group of women in Pittsburgh to start a similar school. And I've been talking to some other groups about starting similar schools. Because the important thing about our school is not just academics, but it's how we treat our families. We're a team and we're together. And so I think that's really important and really different.
Well, thank you for that. Um, I'd like to pivot now and just talk about the writing and publishing process. My understanding is that you are self-publishing the book. So
Yes,
can you just talk? Of course, the Writing for Your Life community is very interested in
yes.
writing and publishing and sort of getting tips and advice. So can you just share lessons learned that you've had through the process or any surprises you've had?
Yes, I can. It has been a process, and I didn't. I had no idea what I was getting into. As I guess I do with anything, I just started, and I'll give another shout out to Kathy Izzard because she has literally been there with me every step of the way to kind of teach me how, point me in the right direction, and it's turned out. My book again, it's turned out really well. It's a real book. Um, but I think the first thing I'll say about the writing process is I mentioned earlier that I wrote these, I wrote just the story, and Kathy really pushed me to go back and to dive deeper. And I alluded to the fact that I left the school, and I had never really told that story before because it was very difficult for me. And it's taken me a long time to grieve and to figure out kind of what happened. The school is still going, but I am not there. And how did that happen? And I didn't share that in the first part of the book, in the first draft of the book. I really just talked about like, I started this school and here's what happened and here's why I started the school. And every single beta reader, and that was the first important step, Kathy said, when you write a book and you've got a draft and you feel like you can't do anything else with it, then you need to find 3 or 4 people that will read it for you. And so I asked some really good friends who knew me really well if they would read it, and all of them came back with the same comment: "What happened? We need to know what happened." And so it was difficult, but I wrote about what happened and why I left the school and how I've kind of bounced back from that. And I think that that was my first important lesson for writing something for a broad audience for publication, that you have to have the courage to share your story, because people find connection in your stories in ways that you never think that they will. So that was one thing that was very surprising to me. But as far as the publishing goes, that was exciting. I connected with lots of different people. I used Readsy.com. That was really helpful website for me. I reached out to the Writing for Your Life community, and through that, I was connected with a line editor, a developmental editor, a proofreader. Um, I was also connected with a designer, and so the process is not that hard, but there's a lot of steps to it. And so by connecting with all these people that knew what they were doing, through connections in Writing for Your Life, as well as through Readsy.com, which is a great website, I was able to kind of get that whole thing figured out. And you just take the steps, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody about what the steps were. But the process I'm in now is trying to figure out how to get it out on social media, which is definitely not my forte. And I've been going around knocking on doors in bookstores. Um, and I've had a lot of success, and I'll stop there. I've had a lot of success with that because when I go in and I have a really nice book that looks very professional, that doesn't have typos in it, that has nice font inside, it has my name on the spine. Bookstores are they're much more amenable to stocking your book because you've done all your stuff. And they think you know what you're doing, or you do know what you're doing. So anyway, that was a very long answer. Sorry.
Interesting because my understanding is one of the downsides of self-publishing is that independent bookstores can't often stock because they isn't as so it sounds like maybe you're having a different experience, which is great.
Yeah, Ingram Spark has really maybe stepped up their game with helping. They get the word out. Ingram Spark is an independent printing company, kind of publishing company, and I sent my book there, and they printed it for me, and then they get it out. It was on Barnes and Noble. I didn't even know, somebody told me, for pre-order the next day. But all independent bookstores can order from Ingram Spark, and once they find out that that's where you've had your book printed and bound and everything, they're like, oh, we can do that, because they can return them for free. They get a big discount. So it's really helpful to them.
That's great. Well, see, I'm learning new things every day, so that's excellent.
Yes.
So in terms of this next step of having your book out in the world, can you tell us sort of when your publication date is, and what do you have any hopes? Is this something that you hope will spark conversations about children who are impacted by homelessness? Is there a broader conversation that you're hoping to sort of join, or do you have other hopes for the book?
When I started writing, my goal was, if one person that I don't know reads my book, I'll feel like it was a success. But now I'm so proud of it, and I think that it has so much to offer the world, not only for starting conversations about the significance of educational inequity for our children who don't have housing, but also there's a lot in there about women my age, about young moms, what it feels like to stay home with your kids, to be out of the workforce for so long, what it feels like to be someone who grew up in a world of privilege, and how that kind of sometimes is off-putting to people when you don't want it to be, but people make assumptions about you and who you are. And there's a lot in there about failing and then figuring out, what do you do when you're shoved into the darkness? What do you do? And how do you get back out again? So I'm hoping that it will touch a lot of different groups in a lot of different ways, and start a lot of conversations. And I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's great. So maybe just as we kind of wrap up, you could tell us where we can find more information about you and your work. And is there anything about the book that we haven't talked about that you want to share?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I forgot to say, September 10th is the release date. So it'll be on all of Amazon, Barnes and Noble, as many independent bookstores as I can get it into. And I'm just so excited. So you can pre-order now, Barnes and Noble. My kids are trying to get me to do an audio book, which I think is sort of funny. And I'm really excited to have conversations. My hope is that I will be able to build some relationships and talk with some small groups about issues that come up in the book. There are study questions in the back. There's exercises for deeper exploration, in both through a theological lens, through a personal lens, and through a social impact lens. And so I'm hoping that those will be useful for a lot of people. I do have a website, KateKennedyWrites.com. So I'm working there. I preach a lot around Atlanta, and all my sermons are posted up there. And I have a Substack that I've been working on that is linked there. So, and all the information about the book. So hopefully it will spark some kind of a conversation in our community.
Great. Well, I do think, and there's such a broader conversation, I think, that needs to happen nationally as well um, about children who are affected by homelessness. So I'm so
Yes.
glad and grateful for your leadership.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, I keep in touch with almost all of the families, and the young scholars that are at the school, and just watching the difference that it's made in their life. And I describe a lot of those in the book. I had one family, and I'll share this one last story, who I've stayed very close to, and I went because I used their story in the book, but I didn't say their names because their stories have some very significant and precise details that so I went to their house and I read the whole family, the chapters about them, and just to make sure that it was okay. And in the end, they said, could you please use our names? Because we want this story to be in the world. Because look at our kids now. They're talking about college and beyond, and that's not something that really has ever been possible in their family generationally. So I did. So that's exciting. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to share all of this, and I hope everybody will read the book.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. So again, we're here with Kate Kennedy, and she's just written a book titled "Once Upon a School: A Story of Dreaming Big, Falling Hard, and Bouncing Back." And it's available September 10th, you said?
Yes, September 10th.
Great. And she's a Writing for Your Life alum, and just really wonderful to hear about some of the lessons learned and your journey of writing. So congratulations, and we look forward to reading the book when it's out in just a few weeks.
Thank you. Me too.
Congratulations again. Thanks so much, Kate.
Thank you.